What is going on, guys? Such an amazing pleasure to be here tonight. Speaking to you guys, I always love the opportunity when I get to speak. Because like Boz was saying, I don't get to do it very often. I have a different role here at God Squad Church most of the time, but it's great to be here to deliver the message tonight. Hope you guys are having an awesome 2018 so far. I'm personally really excited for 2018. There's gonna be lots of cool things happening with the God Squad, and I'm just excited in general. It's gonna be a cool year. But looking back on 2017, it was, let's be honest, it was an amazing year for gaming. Like, we got some incredible titles across multiple systems, and to be honest, I didn't even play most of them. There was just too many. But I heard really good things about a lot of games, and I'll probably be playing catch up here in 2018. Hopefully we don't get even more great games that I'll have to play. Otherwise, I'll just keep falling more and more behind on the games that I need to play. But you guys know me, or if you don't, you're about to. I'm the dude that went and waited in line for 6 hours so that he could get a Nintendo Switch on day one. For me, Nintendo stinking owned 2017. I was talking about how I didn't get to play everything. It's because I was too busy playing Nintendo, because they're just too good. And they started off strong with Breath of the Wild on the Switch. And ever since I completed the main story, I've been thinking more and more about the struggles of one of the main characters. I was talking before about how I was excited for 2018, but unfortunately, some are coming into 2018 without high hopes. Some feel like they're coming into 2018 in the same sinking boat that they ended 2017 in. And tonight, we're going to take a look at one character's struggle to fulfill her destiny, and how even though it wasn't fulfilled in her timing, it was fulfilled in the right timing. So to begin, though, we'll be starting off where all good stories do, right here in the Bible. If you don't have one, no worries. It's going to be up on the screen, and I'm going to drop a link in the chat there for you guys, so you can read in your browser if you'd like. Tonight we're going to be reading a few verses out of Habakkuk. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. I think that's right. Habakkuk. That's probably right. Starting in chapter 1, verse 2. So let me get that on the screen for you guys real quick. So if you aren't familiar with Habakkuk, it's a very short book in the Old Testament, only 3 chapters long, and we don't really know much about Habakkuk as a person other than what we learned through this book. We don't have time to go through the whole book, of course, even though it's only 3 chapters. So we're going to take a look at the key parts of each chapter. So let's start first in chapter 1. Verse 2, with these 3 verses, it reads, "O Lord, how long shall I cry for help, and you will not hear? Or cry to you violence, and you will not save? Why do you make me see iniquity? And why do you idly look at wrong? Destruction and violence are before me. Strife and contention arise. So the law is paralyzed, and justice never goes forth. For the wicked surround the righteous. So justice goes forth perverted." Habakkuk goes on with much more to say in the rest of the book. He's crying out to the Lord because he feels like God is doing nothing to help the situations that he's a part of and the situations that he sees around him, all the injustice happening around him. Now let's talk about Zelda. I'm going to be playing some of the cutscenes from the game here on the side for those of you that aren't familiar with the game. There's not going to be any audio, but take note of Zelda's facial expressions and her body language in these cutscenes, because they tell a lot about what she's going through. So the story of Breath of the Wild is told through memories scattered around Hyrule, and one of them on their own won't really tell you a whole lot, but put them all together and we see a very clear theme. Zelda is a princess, as most of us know, and this time around she's born into a world that is preparing for the return of Calamity Ganon, this great evil that is going to come back and destroy the world if they don't stop it. Zelda's purpose is to unlock her power that she was to inherit from her mother, the power that will be able to seal away Calamity Ganon. It's crucial that she unlocks this power before the return of Calamity Ganon, else the entire kingdom will be destroyed. So she goes about trying to unlock this power. She devotes her entire life to prayer, to traveling to these spiritual locations, to crying out to the gods to unlock this power that she is destined to have within her. But her attempts are unsuccessful. For years, she is unable to unlock this power that she's supposed to have. Everyone sees the coming of danger. The return of Calamity Ganon is coming. Everyone knows that. Much like the injustice Habakkuk sees around him. And Zelda has this promise that is supposed to be her power. Her mother had it, her grandmother had it, but she's yet to find it in herself. Zelda looks at this promise, much like Habakkuk looks at the promises that God gives us. That God will bring justice and protection, and that he works out all things for our good. But Habakkuk doesn't see those promises coming to light, much like Zelda can't access this power that she knows she's supposed to have. Unfortunately, Zelda's struggles don't end there, though. What could make it worse, you might ask? Well, for starters, she's followed around by a constant reminder of her own failures. Link. Our silent protagonist is naturally successful at his destiny, and even before the return of Ganon. He's that guy in your life, or it just seems like everything's going amazing for him. He's born into the royal guard. He's the chosen hero to wield the Master Sword. The sword accepts him as its wielder, and his destiny is clear. We all want to be Link, where our purpose and our destiny is as clear as a sword we carry around on our back. The memories reveal many instances of Zelda almost outright despising Link because of this. Here she is trying to fulfill her own destiny, and then there's Link, always right there with her, with a sword that is the personification of destiny itself, sheathed on his back. And Zelda can't take it. If you find Zelda's diary in Hyrule Castle, she says outright that she thinks Link despises her because she can't unlock her own power, her own destiny. Maybe you think of others like that sometimes. Those people that just seem to have everything going for them. Have you ever thought that they look down on you because you're unsuccessful? I know I've thought that about people before. Our own insecurities cause us to resent those who appear successful. We're reminded of our own failures by their success, just as Zelda is by Link. But Zelda's story is much deeper than even that. We find out from the Champion's Ballad DLC that she lost her mother a year before she was to begin her training, when she was about 6 years old. She lost her mother. And by the looks of things, her father has been hard on her ever since, trying to pressure her to unlock this power, no matter the cost, no matter how much time she has to put into it. People in the castle gossip about her because she cannot fulfill this destiny. She tries to run away from her problems by studying Sheikah technology, but that only makes things worse. She begins to believe that she will never fulfill her destiny. When the story begins, she's only 16. In our world, you'd be in high school. How would you feel if you were in high school and everyone was looking to you to fulfill a purpose that you'd worked at your whole life and had nothing to show for it? Some of you may feel like that now, in some ways. Maybe there's something that you know God is calling you to do, and you're trying, but you just can't. It's just not working out. going back to Habakkuk, this time in chapter 2, verse 2, it says, "And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, it will not lie if it seems slow. Wait for it. It will surely come, it will not delay." So Habakkuk cries out to the Lord. He's like, God, why aren't you doing anything about all of this stuff that's happening? And the Lord says, wait for it. It will surely come. Some of you right now hear that and you're like, yeah, I've heard that 1,000 times. But you're still waiting. Some of you are on your last breath, crying out to God that if he doesn't fix it now, there won't be anything left to fix. And I can't say I blame you, because I've been there, and I know people that have been there even more than I have. But if there's anything that I've learned in the past, in my entire life, specifically the past 4 years, is that God's timing is always perfect. Almost 4 years ago now, God called me to this ministry. I didn't know what the heck it was going to look like, or even that Pastor Susie existed at the time. All I knew that God wanted me to minister to gamers in some way. And I tried to manifest that in ways that proved unsuccessful at first. Before I found the God Squad, my stream was going nowhere. Much like Zelda, I began to run away to other passions because this thing that I knew God had called me to do just wasn't working out. And even once I found Pastor Susie and offered to help in any way that I could, I still didn't fully acknowledge the course of my purpose. I didn't understand how imperative it was that this was what God had for me to do. This ministry was never going to be anything but a hobby for me when I first started getting involved. I continued to pursue other things, and I forgot all about what God had called me to do. I forgot about the promise. Let's go back to Zelda, though. She's been trying so hard to unlock this power that she knows she is supposed to have. It's been promised to her, but it's to the point where she thinks something is wrong with her. And she starts going to these spiritual springs to unlock her power, but before she goes, she's already expecting it to end in failure. We learn from her diary that that's the way she feels before she goes to the spring of power. She says she doesn't expect anything to happen. Some of you are there right now with God, that you're to the point where you pray futile prayers. You pray just because it's what you've always done and what you know you should do, but you're barely hanging on. You pray to God with little faith that he will actually do anything about your situation because you're frustrated. And many of you have every right to be frustrated. That's where Zelda was before Ganon returned. She was in the mindset that if she did not unlock her power, that everything was doomed. And in a sense, she was right. Calamity Ganon came, and without her sealing power, everyone she knew died. Her father, the champions, even Link. Everything she feared would happen, happened. And she blamed herself. That's what we tend to do when things don't go as we planned. We blame ourselves. Around the time when I first discovered Pastor Susie, forgive me, I debated on whether I should go into this or not, but basically what it came down to was I learned so much through this situation, and I hope by me walking you through what I went through, you can also learn from it in your own way. You can apply it to your own life. So around the time when I first discovered Pastor Susie, I also entered into my first relationship. What? Seraph had a girlfriend? What? Yeah, I know, right? Shocking. But it's true. I had no idea what in the world I was doing or what in the world I was getting into, and it was the most stressful thing I've ever done in my life. Even when things were great. And things were great for a while. I prayed about this girl for 7 months. Because if she wasn't the one for me, I wanted nothing to do with her. I wasn't interested in a relationship unless I thought it was going to last a lifetime. So I prayed for 7 months, and despite my best efforts to ignore her, it felt like God kept shoving her in my face. It became clear to me that this girl was someone that I should pursue. And so through trembling nerves, I did just that. And everything was going great. I had every reason to believe that this was the girl I was going to spend the rest of my life with. But still, I begged God that if she was not the one, that he would end it all. And that it would happen sooner rather than later. If she was not the one. I would lie awake almost every night, begging him to end it if it was not his will. Because I feared what I had never felt before. But God waited 8 months to answer that prayer. And 8 months might not sound like a lot to some people. Lots of people go on in relationships for several years before they end up not working out. But 8 months was just enough for me to where when that relationship ended, it tore me apart. I was confused. I was heartbroken. I was angry. I blamed myself. And for the first time since I could remember, I cried. I didn't get teary. I didn't sniffle under my breath. I stinking cried. And I could have so easily blamed God for it all. That if he had just answered my prayers sooner, that I could have avoided the pain. I could have been angry with him that my prayers seemed to fall on deaf ears and that he waited too long to answer them. Somehow, though, I knew that even though it sucked in the moment, that God had a plan. In my hurt, I clung to God more than I ever had because I knew it was the only way to escape the pain. And in time, God showed me why it needed to happen the way it did. And that helped me heal. A year and a half later, and I'm still finding good that came out of that situation. Good that I couldn't see in the moment. It took me months to fully recover. I was the most heartbroken I've ever been. And I'd do it all again if God asked me to. In the moment, I wanted it to be my timing. But it wasn't God's timing. And looking back, I wouldn't want it any other way. Zelda tried for years to unlock her power, and when Ganon returned, she was powerless to defend everyone she cared about. Her timing had passed, but in the turmoil, she finally finds what she had been looking for so desperately. She finally discovered the healing power within her, and at first glance, she seems a moment too late. Link just died in front of her. But there's still hope. She takes Link to the shrine of resurrection, and then she goes alone to seal Ganon for 100 years. Do you think she wanted to do that? Do you think she wanted to face Ganon alone and try to seal him until Link came back? She had no idea it was going to take 100 years. She had no idea if Link was ever going to come back. I doubt she wanted to do that. But she knew it's what she had to do. And in the end, Link finally comes back. They defeat Ganon 100 years after their last chance. Sometimes our lives have to be torn down long before we ever see the light at the end of the tunnel. Sometimes we have to watch somebody die and our kingdom crumble. Sometimes you have to lose your job. Sometimes you have to lose your house. Sometimes You have to watch a relationship fall apart before you see any hope. Going back to Habakkuk, after he cries out to the Lord responds to him. And this is one of the first things the Lord says to him. Did we read this early? I'm confused right now. Forgive me. We're going to read it again, though. I think I might have read it early. We're just going to read verse 3 this time, though. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. I look back on the past 4 years of my life, and there were multiple moments where I was just like, God, this is it. You don't pull through, there's not going to be anything left. I look back and I think how it would have been nice if God had come through for me sooner, months sooner than he did. However, I also can't help but look back and see how perfect his timing was. If things had gone the way that I wanted them to, in my timing, I probably wouldn't be as strong in my faith as I am right now, for starters. I definitely wouldn't be at my local church right now. I might not have traveled 1,000 miles to go meet someone I had only ever seen through a screen. And I may have never met my best friend, a greater friend than I could have ever asked for. I might not even be here speaking to you right now if things had been different. He never promised me that relationship I was in was going to last. But when that fell through, I clung to the promises that he does give me. The same promises he gives you. I cannot stress enough how perfect God's timing is. I'm only 20 years old, turned 21 on the 19th. I'm young. But already I see how perfect God's timing is. Does your situation right now suck? Maybe. Probably does. I don't know what all of you are going through, but I know some of you are going through a heck of a lot right now. Can you see the light at the end of the tunnel? Most of us can't. But there is one. And once you see it, you look back on all the lights that you missed along the way. Now let me be clear that with this promise of good things to come, it does not give us permission to sit idly and just wait for blessings to drop into our lap. Proverbs 12:11 says, "Those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who chase fantasies have no sense." Despite Zelda's hardships, she continued to try. She may not have had the best mindset about it, but she tried. Even when her prayers seemed to fall on deaf ears, she kept at it. She kept going to the springs even when they proved useless in the past. She wanted to run away to her passion of studying Sheikah technology, something she really enjoyed. But in the end, she had to face reality. She had to do the things that she didn't want to do. And she had to go through some things that she was desperately trying to prevent. We don't always get to pursue our passions right from the start. Sometimes we have to buckle down and do what needs to be done in the situation that we're in right now before we ever get to do what we love. Sometimes you have to sacrifice your passion to do what God has for you in your current situation. Where you're at right now might be awful, but you have to make sacrifices if you want anything to change. And can I tell you that there will never be a moment in your life where everything just works, where everything is going absolutely great. There are always hardships to endure. Sometimes maybe harder than others, for sure. But in those times, we have to put in the work and the faith to reach that light at the end of the tunnel, even when we can't even see it. Zelda's diary gives us a small glimpse at the character of her mother, someone we never really got to know Zelda writes about how her mother would always say this to her: "Zelda, my love, all will be well in the end. You can do anything. All will be well in the end." In the end, they defeated Ganon. It took 100 years. It didn't pan out like Zelda had hoped. But everything worked out. God gives that same promise to us. After Habakkuk cries out to the Lord, and after the Lord answers with his promise, Habakkuk closes the book with this, starting in chapter 3, verse 17. It says, "Though the fig tree should not blossom, nor fruit be on the vines, the produce of the olive fail, and the fields yield no food, and there be no herd in the stalls, yet I will rejoice in the Lord. I will take joy in the God of my salvation. God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like the deer's. He makes me tread on my high places." I don't know when destiny's timing is going to pull through for you. I don't know how many more hardships that you're going to face before you get there. And I don't know how much you'll hurt along the way. But the Lord gives us a promise that the vision will await its appointed time. I want to leave you guys with one final detail about Breath of the Wild's story, one that I actually just discovered yesterday in preparing for this. With the Champions Ballad DLC in Breath of the Wild, each of the champions gets a journal that you can go find and read. And Urbosa's talks about a good friend that she had, Zelda's mother. They were very close. When Zelda was born, her mother brought her to see Urbosa. And Urbosa said to her mother that Zelda would grow up to be beautiful, just like her. Her mother thanked Urbosa, but said that looks are fleeting, and instead wished for Zelda to be blessed with true happiness. Urbosa wrote that the way Zelda's mother looked at her daughter was an unconditional love like Urbosa had never seen before. God has an unconditional love for you and me. No matter how badly we screw up, no matter how frustrated we get, no matter how angry, no matter how badly we mess up, He never stops loving us. If you're in the stream right now and you're not a Christian, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that following Christ is going to make your life just so much better. Following Christ is the hardest thing that you will ever do on this earth if you choose to follow Him. But what I can tell you is that it is also the most rewarding and most fulfilling passion you will ever pursue. If you're here and you're feeling God pull on your heart, if you felt Him pulling on your heart for a while, now could be His timing for you if you let Him in. But know that we cannot save you. The only thing that saves you is the blood of Christ, who died on a cross for our sins, for our mistakes. And when we acknowledge that we're sinful and that He is the only one that can save us from that, is when we accept an unconditional love unlike any other.